I'll try not to stay on the beginning of it too long. Give everybody a second to get turned there. Of course, chapters 1, we've talked about in Genesis, beginning of the world. Chapter 2, beginning of man. Chapter 3, that's when sin was introduced. That's the beginning of sin. A lot of beginnings in the beginning of the Bible, ain't they? Kind of fitting. Some first, too. We're going to see there's a big first coming up here in the first verse, the first birth. Eve has the first baby. And I guess for a little comedy on that, for those of us who have had children, that childbearing process and cravings by the wife and, all those types of things. I wonder if Eve had any of those, had to go get a ice cream or something in the middle of the night or something like that. So, but think about it, it had to be a big shock maybe for Eve and maybe even for Adam. You seeing Eve going around there normal, and then all of a sudden her belly starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, like I said, a little comedy there. I was trying to hope and lighten the mood, but for those of us, like I said, that's had children, I've been through it 4 times there, and each time was different, and it was good. It was good. All of it. It was a rough day too, not for me, but for my wife. So, but verse 1 of chapter 4, chapter 4. I'll wait till y'all get there. We're in no big hurry this morning. In chapter 4, we said 1, 2, and 3, beginning of the world, beginning of man, beginning of sin. And today we're going to talk about the results of what sin has done, what it's created, and how it's affected man. And in chapter 4, verse 1, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. All right. So, Cain, that means, from what I could tell from reading a couple different, the meaning of the name Cain is gotten and acquired. And then my study Bible here says something about spear at the bottom. Like I said, you read some different commentaries and all, but I think the biggest thing here is that Eve's maybe saying that she's gotten him from God. And if you remember just a few verses back over here, when Adam disobeyed God, God mentioned the curse on the earth, but there would be a hope coming one day. So I would like to think that Eve was already hoping for that hope, hoping that man would come, even then, the first one she was hoping. But, of course, you guys, all of you in here knows that Cain is not going to end the curse. What we're about to find out is Cain is not the great hope. He is not the solution. He ended up being, in my ideas, a really big disappointment. He ended up being a murderer, as we'll see here in a minute. So, but at some point in time there, I believe Eve was hoping and thinking that he would be the Redeemer to get things straightened out maybe. Verse 2, and she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Abel, meaning in his name, breath, vanity, or ascending. I'm going to flip over to Romans 8, verse 20 right quick. This will help us understand this. That name meaning was kind of elusive to me. I had to read a little bit here to get a kind of an understanding. I hope I don't get in the weeds too much on this. But we'll flip over to Romans chapter 8, verse 20. Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Roma. And I'm going to have to start doing better at marking these spots. Chapter 8, verse 20. This is where I'm going to struggle. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected the same in hope. Now, what does that mean? Okay. Vanity, not producing results, useless or cursed. So, the thinking is, I believe here is that Eve is aware of that. She uses this name choice to kind of reveal her understanding of the severity of the curse right now. You know, here's Abel, breath. There's vanity in the cursed world, and to me, it's she's understanding of what's actually happened. You know, Cain was the big hope. Now she's just realizing maybe, or showing that how vain the earth is going to be for man coming forward. Like I said, I hope I didn't get you too confused on that. Abel and Cain's occupation listed here, the tiller and the shepherd. When I was reading this, I was like, Abel, he's protecting what God has provided. That's his job. And Cain, if he's farming, he's working. Of course, both of them's working, but his results are going to be more. He's going to have, maybe his results will be more based on his efforts, and I think we all know where that's going with works. And of course, we're going to read here in a little bit. But Abel's occupation, he's looking after what God has provided. He's tending it. He's taking care of it. And of course, Cain, like I said, is working. So maybe Cain gets a little more proud in his heart doing that, because he sees his labor and he tills the ground, and maybe he forgets that God's got a big hand in all that. But Abel's job, Mary, when the life is born out in the field, that's because God and God's work is there. I mean, he's not doing that. He's taking care of what God has provided there, is what comes to my mind when I look at that. And where I'm going with that, we'll get on up here. Verse 3, I'll read it. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. All right, now this verse 3, read this a bunch, it didn't really dawn on me, but there's a process that's been set here already. There's been some instruction either from God, or probably from God or Adam and Eve, that they've set a date or a time here, however you want to look at it, to worship. They didn't just willy-nilly just decide to do it. So you think about what God did for Adam and Eve after they sinned. You remember he clothed them in garments? So they have, Adam and Eve has established a set way to worship God. They know God wants to be worshiped. And now the sons are doing that, okay? And I'm sure here when we read this that Cain, he worked at it. There's that word again, worked. I'm sure he didn't just throw a few seeds in the ground and hoped it growed up, and then he just put a bundle of it together and throwed it out there, in front of God. I'm sure he worked at it. I'm sure he tended it. I'm sure he weeded it. And when he harvested it, I feel sure that he personally, I'm doing this. This is going to look really good. I'm going to make this look good for God. I mean, that would be the purpose of worship, wouldn't it? But there's that pride probably working its way into his heart, that, hey, I've done this. Probably forgetting the fact that God had the overall influence on, anything. The earth could have been cursed even worse than what it was. Let me put it that way. Could have been nothing produced. But God cursed the earth, but he still gave man the opportunity to dominion over the earth, to provide for himself and like that. So here's Cain's offering, and it was probably pleasant, but there was no sacrifice involved, as we're going to see with Abel's sacrifice. Think about that as we move forward here. Verse 4. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. All right, here we go again. Like I just explained a while ago, Abel's tending sheep. God has provided that. He has done very little. His existence in doing so, he has to have faith in God that God is going to provide with these sheep. I mean, he's tending them and he's taking care of them, but is he producing them? No, God. God has made these sheep. And not only is there sheep, God has made these sheep that the very firstlings and the best ones is the one that Abel picked out right there. Now, he didn't go get the crippled one or the one that couldn't, looked weak or something like that. He gave God the very best as his offering. He put that up on the line first because he knew if God was deserving of the very best, not second hand, second rate, or nothing like that. All right. So, the faith offering of giving back to God the best of what God has provided, looking into the eyes of the very best animal when he offered this sacrifice. Think about that. This is the very best God has provided. And he looks into the eyes of this animal when it's time to sacrifice and it dies. If that don't prick your heart, I don't know what will. Especially early on in life. I can go, as a child, going hunting. I want to use this as an example. The first time I killed anything probably was when I was a little boy with an air rifle. And, I remember when you killed something like that around the first time that, man, you're like, ooh, that's bad. It pricks your heart. And then, unfortunately, over time, boys tend to just get more, I don't know if they just get more accustomed to it and their hearts get harder. But them initial days, to see life. But then I figure right here, an animal sacrifice that God's provided the very best, and you look into the eyes and that animal dies, it's sad. And the thing about that is because that's Abel's heart. And the thing about these sacrifices here, even though on the outside, these guys give the very best looking harvest and the very best, the first ones of the flock and the fat one of the flock, it's their heart. God sees that goes with it. God don't just see the offering. God don't just see what they throwed out there. God sees the heart of whoever's doing the worship in there too. That's why he had respect for Abel's offering right here. Abel knows that Abel is faithful, and he knows God is his provider. And he wants to give God back the very best first. Then I'll take something. But let me give God the very best first. All right? Now I'll read verse 5. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Oh, I bet. Proud Cain. Now God's had no respect for his offering. Can't you see the look on his face probably? Mad, a little sad, a little mad. I can't believe that. I worked hard at that, God, putting that together, that offering. I worked really hard, and all Abel done just brought one of the flock up here and sacrificed it, All that hard work. But anyway, he's anger in his heart too. No respect, it means it's not acceptable. Why? God can see the heart of the worshiper. We touched that on the previous verse. Not only whatever's given, but God can see the heart of the giver. Angry heart. Let me flip over to Matthew chapter 5. Verses 21 and 22, and we'll see what Jesus had to say about anger. Y'all probably already know this, but let's see here. Matthew chapter 5. 21 and 22. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill. Now, this is Jesus speaking. You all heard this a long time ago is what he's saying. You shall not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. He who kills is probably going to be killed. 22, but I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, thou shalt be in danger of hellfire. Anger. Jesus pretty much saying anger in the heart there against your brother, that's going to lead to murder. We're talking about murder and killing right here, okay? And the first glimpse of the murderer's heart was right here in this verse, because but Cain to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth. That's anger. This is the first glimpse there. We're going to see what Cain's capable of doing, knowing what we know what Jesus said about anger and about murder and killing people. So we know that. And of course I covered his proud of his offering. Verse 6. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? All right. Boy, why the sad face or the upset look or the anger on your face? But the key thing here is he's made an offer and God didn't accept it. I mean, it's not the end of the world yet, is it? No, but God's giving him a chance. Why are you upset? Why the face here? Why the countenance? Why your actions, the way you're walking or behaving here? Just because, the offering wasn't as good as what, I had more respect for Abel. But it's not the end of the world for you, Cain. God's willing to work with him here. I mean, you can even think back about the nation of Israel. God's patient. God is a patient God. I don't know how many kings and rulers Jerusalem went through and the kingdom of Judah went through before God finally allowed, or however you want to put it, but the Babylonians come in and hauled them back off to Babylon. That was God's judgment on the nation. That didn't happen overnight, guys. The reason some of what I was studying, I got tangled up in reading in Ezekiel because of God's patience right here. And that nation of Judah, they had abominations going on within the temple. The place where God was supposed to be and where they were supposed to be worshiping God, these should be the closest people to God. They were actually abominations within the temple, because Ezekiel, he goes back in a vision and sees that. And of course, he's in Babylon at this time. He's been hauled off, so he's telling about his visions that he's had, telling the people in Babylon, this is why you got hauled off, guys. This is why everything was destroyed and we were hauled back off to Babylon. These kind of abominations were going on. But it happened over a long period of time. That's just to show that God is a patient God. And look here, he's already patient with Cain right here. He got mad over an offering, and God's willing to talk to him about it. Verse 7. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? Well, Cain, if you do good, you'll be accepted. I mean, you got a chance here, Cain, is what God's telling him. And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. Now, also God tells him, if you don't do good, sin is crouching at the door, waiting for you. So you got an option, Cain, to either start doing what's good and acceptable in God's eyes, or you can continue to do what's bad. And it was his heart. That's what it was. The putting together the harvest there and offering that to God, a lot of work involved in that, that wasn't a big offense. But just because God didn't have respect for it. But God knew what was in his heart. When he got angry and his countenance fell, that's when God knew there was a problem right there. All right? And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Now, if you continue to do bad, sin's lying at the door, crouching at the door. It's going to take over you. It's going to get you. It's pretty much what he's telling him right here. And all he had to do was, close the door. Close the door to where the sin's at. Go the other direction. Don't go out that door. For us, of course, we can let Jesus get the door for us. Because it's laying out there waiting for us too. That's the way I feel. All you got to do is start doing wrong, and it'll catch up with you. It don't take long. And then one thing leads to another. That's the way sin works. But it's waiting at the door there to get. And it's waiting there to get Cain. All right. Verse 8. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother. Well, that ought to be pretty normal. At least he was willing to talk to Abel. I wonder he hadn't been so mad he didn't even want to get around him, but he's talking with him. And it came to pass when they were in the field, well, they're here together now in the field, probably working together, that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. So he went from having a conversation with Abel, being in the field with Abel, to killing him. So that anger, to me, that shows to me that anger didn't leave his heart. It was in there all that time. Even though he talked with him, he was in the field working with him, that anger was still there. He hadn't got rid of it, and he's still mad at God. He's mad at Abel. He's still just upset about the whole thing. Evil. Read John. 1 John chapter 3, verse 2. We're going to find out why Cain done this. 1 John chapter 3, verse 12. There we go. 1 John chapter 3, verse 12. I'm going to read that one right quick. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother, and wherefore slew him, because his own works were evil, and his brothers were righteous. Because his own works were evil. That work he was doing, and that offering he gave to God was evil. And that's what was in his heart. That's why he killed, and his brother was righteous. Okay. Verse 9. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? All right. Well, not only has he got anger in his heart, and he's got a bad countenance, now he's a liar. He's lying to God. So we can see what happens to Cain. After God told him he could change direction, and start doing what's right, things would have got better, but he ain't done that. It's obvious. Now, see what's happened. He's went a little further. Now he's a liar. He's a murderer, and he's a liar. So it just gets worse and worse. Verse 10, And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. God knows all, and in this verse, God knows that action is required, because Abel's voice is crying from the ground. He's been murdered. This can't go on without something taking place. It's got to be made right to some degree. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. All right, up until now, what's been cursed? The creation, earth. Yeah, the ground, earth has been cursed. Now what's cursed? Cain. All right, and we're going to see how this is going to carry on with Cain right here in a few minutes. So now we've got the earth is cursed, we got Cain is cursed, and it's just going to get worse. Verse 12. I'll read it. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. All right. God's telling him it's going to get even worse from you. The earth already cursed. Now you're cursed. It's going to be even less fruitful for him. And now he's banished. Worse than that, being part of a family is a good thing. He had Adam and Eve, his mom and his dad. He had his brother. He killed his brother. But being part of a family, think about it, especially back then, was a good thing because they offered protection. Imagine what it would be like back in those times with no hospital to go to when you got sick or something, or if you broke a leg or an arm or anything. All you had was God and your family. This is pretty big. He's a vagabond now. He's being banished. This is severe punishment for anybody back in those days. Not to be taken lightly. and a nomad, pretty much vagabond nomad. Verse 13. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Now, what does that sound like? More pity party? Poor old Cain. I've killed my brother. I live in a cursed earth, and now you've cursed me, God. And now I just ain't going to be able to cope. I ain't going to be able to deal. What did he expect when he killed his brother? Exactly. But now, like I said, he's throwing the pity party. And, of course, he continues to not admit his guilt. Not once. After the verse we talked about where God told him, if you start doing what's right, there's still a chance for you. That's back from the offering, you know. But still, he ain't changing nothing. Nothing's changed about Cain. He ain't going to admit he killed his brother. He ain't going to admit he done wrong. And on top of that, he's not even looking to God and ask for forgiveness right here. I mean, he could look at this and said, this is more than I can bear, God. I am sorry. I should have never let this happen. He could have, but nah. That's not in his heart. He's got that old working heart there where he worked and he got proud of what he put together and he gave it to God because he made it and it looked good. And when God didn't accept it, he got mad. And that's what he's continuing. That's his heart. That's the heart of Cain right there. And he just thinks it's not fair. Verse 14. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. All right. More pity here. You've done this to me, God. You've sent me out here. Now ain't nobody will want nothing to do with me, and they going to kill me. And what about Abel? That's my thoughts there. What about Abel? He ain't thinking about what he done to Abel, not one bit. Verse 15. And the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. All right. So if somebody kills Cain, it's going to be sevenfold time worse on them. And the mark, honestly, from what I read on commentary, I don't know. I don't know if anybody really knows what the mark was. It don't look to me like it's explained. But this is the verse where I got tangled up. I was telling you about earlier about going to Ezekiel. Because in chapters 8 and 9, in Ezekiel's dream, there was one man dressed in white, had an inkhorn, and marked the people of Jerusalem who weren't I call them abominations. There were some evidently in Jerusalem that lamented over the fact that lots of people within Jerusalem were worshiping false gods, unimaginable abominations going on within the temple. But there was a few good ones. And this mark was marked upon their head. But, that's a stretch. So I'm just going to say we don't know. But that's how I got tangled up a while ago about Ezekiel and his dream. I got to reading that. All right. 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Now here we're getting into some verses where I was questioned not long ago, and these people like to use these upcoming verses to, I guess, maybe to discredit the Bible or offer theirself on some kind of make them believe what and not believe in the Bible, or however their question is, well, Cain went to the land of Nod and then he married a woman. Well, where did she come from? But this question comes from people that don't even read the verses following, or the chapters following, But if you've ever talked to anybody much, I figure you may have had that question. I've heard it more than once, is why it sticks in my mind. But we'll find that out. Nod, of course, means wandering, exile. That's just continuing on. Now, verse 17. And Cain knew his wife. Here's that verse I was telling you about. Let's say, now what about, where did Cain's wife come from? And she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. All right, a little bit to talk about right here. Of course, the answer is in chapter 5, verse 14 about the wife. Let me read that right quick. And all the days of Canaan, I can't pronounce that, were 910 years. No, what did I got? My handwriting maybe. I know I read it. Let's see here. Chapter 5, verse 4, not 14. Here we go. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat, what is it? Sons and daughters. That's where Cain's wife come from these sons. Not some group of aliens that landed over here on the east of Eden, or another tribe, lost tribe, or something like that. Adam had sons and daughters. It's not that far-fetched a thing either. And then here's the one the people whose question they'll throw at you. Now, what, marrying your sons and daughters or having kids, that's going to cause problems, health problems. But from what I read and understand, when you're that close to the spring of man, when it's first created, that's not many generations off. That gene pool don't become diluted and depleted and mutated, and that happens over a long period of time. So it's no far stretch to say that Adam's sons married, had kids with their own daughter. It's not that big a stretch. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard to believe. It's actually really easy to believe. So that'll answer that question. And also, Cain, he continues to rebel here. What verse was this? This was 17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived. We done cleared that up. It ain't that big a deal. And bare Enoch. Now, of course, this is not the Enoch that lived, I think, 165 years and then spent the next 300 years walking with God, and then he was taken up. This is not that Enoch. This is a different one. And he builded a city. All right now, Cain, God's told you you're going to be a nomad and a wanderer is your punishment. That which you believe is so hard to bear that you just can't stand it. Now, what has he done? He's trying to settle down. He's building a city. Now he's got a wife. He should have stayed a wanderer and a vagabond, because what do we think is going to come from the line of Cain, honestly? Do we think it's going to get any better? I mean, what the old saying, like father, like son, don't always ring true. I understand that. But we're going to read some verses here. May not get to them today, but on over here at the end of this chapter, Lamech talks about he kills somebody, and if somebody comes seeking vengeance from him, it's going to be 70 times 70 worse than what Cain received. Now, how did he know what Cain received? Cain had been babbling about what God had done to him, when he probably should have kept his mouth shut and never told nobody none of that. Now, how did Lamech know it? On down the line, I think Cain was proud of it. I mean, how else would Lamech known about it? God's going to banished me and sent me out. Now here, look, I've got a wife, all these kids. Now I'm building my own city. That's more of that proud heart, I guarantee you, because that's the kind of man he was. He put that offering together and he was proud of it. Now he's been banished. He's went out on his own without God helping him. He probably had no faith in God to help him with this. Now he's got his own family and he's building his own city. And that's the way of Cain, and that's the way we're going to keep continuing on. And I am going to stop at that today. And also to remember, at this point, Cain, he still ain't asked for forgiveness or admitted any guilt. He's continuing on in his evil ways. All right, I'll dismiss with a little prayer. Let us pray. Dear God, I thank you for this day, Lord. And I pray that you be with each and every person today, this week, God. And I hope that something we read in here in our lesson today helps each and every one of us in our walk this week, God. I want to pray for Brother Travis. He gets up and preaches a sermon to us, God. And if a bit hard in here, it needs to be pricked. I pray that he preach those words today. If soul needs to be saved, I hope those ears hear. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.